Hello and welcome. So today I'm going to show you how to make a bowl cozy, which is going to look like this when it's all done. And it's very simple to construct, and it doesn't take a whole lot of material either. So you're going to want two 10 by 10 pieces of fabric. So what I'm using today are layer cake squares, which are again 10 by 10. You can use yardage or you can use charm packs, and you would just, sew them together as a 4-patch. Then you also need 2 squares of 10 by 10 100% cotton batting. Now, if you plan to microwave your bowl cozy, so you don't have to microwave it, you can just use it to keep your hot bowl in your hand after you've microwaved it, or you can actually put the bowl cozy in the microwave, but you must make sure that your thread, your fabric, and your batting are 100% cotton. So this bowl cozy takes maybe 30 to 45 minutes to construct. It's pretty simple. You can sew them as a batch, meaning you can make a whole bunch of them at one time, or you can do 1-offs or 2-offs or whatever. They make great gifts. But anyway, they're a quick and easy and a nice, sweet gift for somebody. So follow along and I'll show you how to make them. Okay, so for the bowl cozies, you're going to need 2 10 by 10 pieces of 100% cotton fabric. Here I've just used layer cake squares. So I just chose a couple of coordinating pieces from a layer cake. And then you're going to need 2 pieces of 100% cotton batting that are also 10 by 10. The reason why you want to go with 100% cotton is because these can be put in the microwave. So if you use polyester, you take a risk of catching on fire. So I would always recommend 100% cotton fabric, batting, and thread. So the first thing we're going to do is take our pieces and flip them wrong side up. So, this is the good side, this is the wrong side, this is the right side, this is the wrong side. You're going to flip both of those wrong side up. Take your 10 by 10 squares of batting and just kind of put them over there. My pieces might not be exactly 10 by 10 because I did iron my layer cake pieces because they were a little wrinkly. So that can all be trimmed out in the end. But we're just going to place those on the back here. Just lay them over nicely. Then you're going to take your pins, and I'm going to recommend that you pin them right about here. And the reason I say that is because you're going to go diagonal and then this way. So if you put them in these strategic places, you're going to avoid having your machine run over your pins. It's not really necessary to do all 4 sides. I usually just do the 2, and then you're going to flip it back over, and we'll go from there in just 1 second. Let me get the pins in this one. Bowl cozies are a super easy project to make for Christmas gifts. This is the 2nd year in a row that I've done a set of 20 something of them for my husband's coworkers. They make a really, really nice gift. I've been working on mine for the last several months just because I like to do just a little bit at a time and then stash them away. And then when I give them out as gifts, I always write a little tag with what they are and what you do with them, i.e. they keep your bowl warm and they can be put in the microwave. So I always think they make a really great coworker gift. Anyway, once you've got both of your batting pinned to your fabric pieces, you're going to flip them over. And then I like to use a Hera marker. You can use a chalk pencil or a friction pen or whatever you want, but I like to use the Hera marker because it just leaves no trace. You're going to take your ruler and go corner to corner and just make a nice mark. Now I hope you can see the mark. It is faint, but for me it's plenty. I wear my glasses when I sew. Well, of course I wear my glasses all the time, but anyway, I have glasses when I sew, so makes it easier for me to see the line. But you're going to do all 4 corners, or both diagonals to hit all 4 corners. And you're going to do that on both of your pieces. Now you will need to make marks that go this way and this way, but me personally, I like to go ahead and sew these diagonals first and then come back and mark my lines like this, just because it kind of gives me that center point. So you can go ahead and make all 4 marks if you want to, but I, like I said, like to do these first 2 and then come back. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to sew on these lines. When I'm doing 40 pieces, I'll tend to chain piece everything. That means that we're only doing 2. You can chain piece or not chain piece, but here we go. You can see the lines, my diagonals there. So we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew the diagonals. I just use regular old white bobbin thread on the bottom, and then on the top I just use a coordinating color fabric. I might choose either a yellow, a tan, or even a navy or a green. But anyway, you're going to go to your sewing machine. You're going to sew those 2 diagonals on each, and then we'll come back here. Okay, so now we are ready to sew our diagonals. I have put a matching yellow thread in the top. I just left regular white in the bottom, but this yellow will match both my sides here. So that's what I've put in my machine. And I'm going to go ahead and just sew these real quick. Now, if you can notice, my pin is all the way over here, so it's far away from this line. And then once we sew this line, before we go and sew the other straights, we can take these pins out. So once these diagonals are sewn, then we can just take the pins out, so we don't need to worry about them again. But I would, just as you're going along, make sure that you don't hit your pins, because again, I've got a pin over here, and I want to make sure that I don't hit that pin. I can feel the little bulb of it, so I'm just making sure that I don't hit that pin. And then I'm going to come grab my other one, and then just kind of slide it under there. Now this one's a little bit harder to see, my little line. I hope that you can see it. It's right here. But when you deal with these lighter color fabrics, for me it seems to be just a little bit harder to see. But I'm using just a regular stitch length on this. So I think my stitch length is 2.5 on my Bernina here. So there's my pin. If you can see it, it's right here. So we're just going to make sure that we don't hit that. Trim, and then we're going to do the other 2 diagonals. Let's just cut this fabric, or cut this string real fast. Do these other 2, and then we'll get started on the other lines. Now, again, these full cozies are really, really easy to put together. They are a little time consuming, especially when you're doing a whole bunch of them like I tend to do when I make them. But again, if you chain piece and just kind of do everything in the same order over and over and over again, step by step, it tends to be pretty easy. Like I said, they are easy, but they are a little time consuming. Again, especially if you're doing a whole bunch of them. There's my pins. I'm just going to make sure it's out of the way, because if it does catch that foot, it will shift things a little bit. I'm going relatively fast because I'm not 100% concerned if I veer just a little bit off of that line. This is just to secure that batting in place, and also gives it kind of a neat little decorative look. But now both of my diagonals are sewn on. I'm going to flip these over real quick and get the pins out of the way for the next step. So if you can recall, we only pinned a couple of sides here. So we'll just get those pins out of the way, and then we're going to head back over to the table and mark our other 2 lines. Okay, so now we're back to make our second set of marks. So if you can see, we've got our diagonals here. Well, actually that's a little harder to see on that one, but on this one you can see that we have diagonal corner to corner. Now we're going to make our second set of marks. So you always want to go use your ruler to find the even spots there. Make sure that this part is in the center. That's why I like to wait until the very end, or not the very end, but this is why I like to wait until my diagonals are marked, or excuse me, my diagonals are sewn, because then it just kind of gives me something to go off of. And now I'm going to use that mark I just made there, line that up, make sure it goes on the center, and then make my second mark on that one. And then same thing over here. Make sure I'm square, or not square, but straight over here. Make sure my line goes through that center mark. Flip it, and then do the same thing. Line up my mark over here. Just pick a spot, and then make sure it goes through that center. It is a little hard to tell. Ooh, I was a little off there. I guess that's what happens when you choose such coordinating thread. But anyway, I'll just make that mark. And now we're gonna go back to the machine and sew on these marks. Machine, and we're going to go ahead and sew these other 2 lines. Same thread, same procedure. We're just making these 2 additional lines on our bowl cozy here. And being that we're getting into soup season, these bowl cozies are just super helpful for that. One of my favorite soups to make in the wintertime is chicken tortilla soup. Of course, I'll make it year-round. But another thing that I like to make is chicken and sausage gumbo. My father was a born and bred Cajun, and he taught me how to make chicken and sausage gumbo before he passed away, and I'm so glad that he did, because it is such a family tradition. Whenever we smell it, we think of Grandpa. Like my kids, whenever they smell the gumbo that I'm cooking, their instant thought is Grandpa. And then I went to visit my sister and help her when she was battling cancer, and I made a whole bunch of gumbo, and she said the same thing. She said it just smells like Daddy in here. So anyway, these bowl cozies are wonderful for when you sit down with your hot bowl of soup. They're also wonderful for reheating that soup. They're just wonderful. I really, really love the bowl cozies. Anyway, there's our second set of stitches, and then we will, I'll show you how to get it all assembled here in just a sec. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to want to do is mark your darts. But real quick, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess here, because I told you that my cutting was a little bit off, and I'm okay with that. But I'll go ahead and cut off my excess here. That way, when I'm doing all of my final assembly, it doesn't look weird and throw me off. But the next, like I said, the next thing that we're going to want to do is mark our darts. So in order to make the concave shape of the bowl cozy, you're going to make darts. Oop. Hang on one more second. I think I'm just going to turn this side on this one, and then we'll be done. Okay, so get those out of the way. So I like to use a smaller ruler with this one rather than my giant one. I have this little embroidery ruler I picked up at the quilt market a long time ago, and it's one thing that I keep in my little drawer next to me. So you're going to take your cozies, or your layer cake pieces, or 10-inch pieces, whatever. You're going to fold them like this. So just fold them in half. And then at the 2-inch mark, so you're going to, you see how this is right here at the 2 inches? You're going to make a mark at the 2-inch mark. And I just use a regular old pen, because you are never going to see this. You can use a pen, a marker, whatever you want. Just want to make sure you can see it through this batting here, and then go to the 1-inch mark. So you see I have a mark here at 2 inches, and then at 1 inch. Then you're going to take your little ruler, and you're going to connect both of those points. Okay. And you're going to want to do this on all 4 sides. Okay, so I'll show you just one sec what that's going to look like on the other pieces, or excuse me, on the other side. So you see I've got my my 2 darts here, and I'm going to open it back up, and I'm going to open it or fold it this way. Okay, and I'm going to repeat the process. So at the 2-inch mark, same thing over here, the 2-inch mark, and then the 1-inch mark. Nothing scientific. If you're off just a little bit, it's really not going to matter all that much, so don't panic. But make your little marks, and you're going to want to do this with both pieces. I'm not going to do both pieces on camera, but this is what you're going to look like. Okay, so this way you've got your marks here, and then this way you've got your marks here. So you're going to do this on both pieces, and then you're going to take them over to the sewing machine, and I'll show you how to take care of the dart. Back at the machine to sew up our darts. You're literally just going to sew on that line. Now, when I'm doing the whole bunches of them, I definitely chain piece, and since I only have 2 to make, I'm still going to chain piece. Just makes things a little bit easier and faster, in my opinion. And obviously, it's a bit of a save on your thread. So we're just going to real quickly sew up this set of darts. Always forget, or always have to think there for a minute about which direction I want to go when I'm doing these here. And now we're going to trim that. And we're going to trim it on this one too. Okay, and now what we're going to do is open this up and fold it and do the other darts. Now, just if you can see, you see how it kind of gets a little wonky in there. Just make sure that you're sewing your dart correctly. One thing that could help is some clips. I'll go ahead and put a clip here, and this just makes sure that this part and this part stay nice and even. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing over here. Like I said, it just helps make sure that everything stays even, because when you get to this stage, things can get a little bit wonky, and you just want to make sure that everything stays lined up. So let's put these clips here and here, and then we will sew the second set of darts in the exact same way that we just did over there, or on this side. So oops, we're going to go ahead and sew our little darts. Just like this. Now you can see why when I make a whole bunch of these, I try to just chain piece them, and then like I said, I'll do like one whole step on one session. I'm not going to say on one day, because I certainly don't do these every single day. That's why it takes me a few months to make them in bulk like this, because I don't like to do a whole lot at one time. So we're going to go ahead and do this other one real quick. And then this side. Now, when you're done with these, you want to trim off the excess fabric. You can use darts, or excuse me, not darts, I'm sorry. You can use your rotary cutter, or you can just use scissors for the sake of the camera here. I'm just going to show you how I just trim them up. I just use my scissors, and obviously you want to trim all 4 darts on all 4, or excuse me, on both pieces. So just kind of rotate it around until you get all your darts trimmed. And then next we're going to work on the assembly, which again is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and it comes together pretty fast when you're just doing 1 or 2 of these, and obviously we're just doing the one. So get this all trimmed up, and then I will meet you back over at the table and we'll see how to get these assembled. Okay, now we're back at the table, and as you can see on both of our layer cake pieces or 10-inch pieces, we've got all the darts sewn. So this is what it looks like. So now you can see it's starting to come together. You can definitely see where this is going. So we're going to take both of these pieces, put them right sides together, and we're going to clip them. So I like to put clips in 2 spots, right up here in the corner, and then right up here where the 2 darts meet, because when you sew this, you're going to sew down here, turn your project just a touch, and then catch that next one. So you definitely want to make sure that you're staying pretty even there. So like I said, that's why I do 2 clips, or do a clip in each position, each corner, and each joint. Now also, when you're sewing these together, you want to make sure that you leave an opening. So to remind myself where I want the opening, which you can do the opening wherever it is you want, but I have learned through trial and error that you probably want to have your opening in this long part here, not where the dart is. just because it just tends to make things a little bit easier to sew. So we're just going to go all the way around, getting the pin or the clips put, and you can pin it if you want to. You don't have to use clips. I just happen to like clips with this particular project. It just seems to make things a little bit easier for me. Like I said, we're gonna go all the way around. Right sides together. You're gonna match up all your corners. Okay, so now that we're here to this last one, doesn't really matter where you are, but when you get to that last one, I like to put a couple extra clips there to remind me that this is my opening. Now, you want to give yourself a pretty decent size opening because this is a lot of material to go through the hole. So you really do want it to be about that big. Let's see, we can measure it real quick. I'm going to say 2.5 inches. 2 inches to 2.5 inches is what you're going to want to go. So maybe we'll put one extra clip there to remind me. And you're also going to want to backstitch here and backstitch here so that when you pull it all through, it doesn't come apart. But the next thing we're going to do is just sew 1/4 inch. And when I get to the machine, I'll show you how I go about managing the parts where the darts are. Okay. The machine now ready to sew this all together. I made a boo-boo. Well, I guess not a boo-boo. It doesn't really matter. But I typically like to start with my opening, and since it's over there, I don't really want to start in the middle of a dart, so I'm just going to leave it for the end. But you want to start your stitching. Like I said, you want to go 1/4 inch. So we'll do a couple of stitches. My machine automatically does a couple of back stitches, but I'm going to put in a couple extras. You're going to go all the way down to where that seam is for the dart. And I like to get kind of right in the middle of that dart. Let my presser foot lift up. And if yours doesn't lift automatically, then you want to lift your presser foot. You want to turn it just a touch. I hope you saw how I turned it just a little bit. And then you're going to go down the next side. And you're going to repeat this all the way around. So get to your corner. Obviously turn it. Get to the middle of that seam. Stop, let your presser foot come up just a little bit, shift it, and then finish that 1/4 inch. And if you can see, I've got a little bit of batting that I didn't get trimmed off. Okay, so that's fine. I'm just following the line of the fabric, not the batting, because the batting is over just a little bit, so I am not following the batting. I'm following the fabric. Okay. We're going to keep going all the way around. Whoops. Dart. I'm gonna lift my presser foot just a touch. Like I said, mine does it automatically. I don't know. My baby lock does not. So if yours doesn't, then just make sure you lift your presser foot to turn it just a little bit. And I'm getting near the end, and I'll show you how we're going to make that opening. Okay, so now that we're at this last part where I'm going to do the opening, I'm just going to get these out of the way because now I know, my mind knows where I'm at. And I'm going to go just a little bit, back stitch, and I'm going to cut my thread. Get these out of the way. And then I'm going to move those couple of inches, which at this point I'm just going to eyeball. Just wait till it go to the very end here, and then do the same thing. Back stitch a couple stitches, and then finish it off. Okay. And then what you want to do is, because again we've got a lot of bulk in this, you're going to want to go ahead and trim your little corners. So if you can see real careful, or if you can see here, you want to be real careful because you do not want to snip where your seams are. You just want to cut off the little edges just like that. So you see there, you want to avoid that. Just do that. Okay, all 4 sides. Get those out of the way. And then the next thing we want to do is turn this inside out. Okay, so this is what we're left with. We're left with an inside out bowl cozy. So you're just going to want to find your opening, which is right here. And I like to just kind of pull my thumb through and get that far corner. And then start pulling the whole thing through. So I left about a good 2.5 inches in that opening, so you can see it's not very hard at all to pull this through. And then you're just going to want to get it all pulled through. And then you're going to take your hair marker or whatever it is, your chopstick, whatever it is that you use to push out corners, and you gently want to push all 4 corners out. So go through here, oop, find my corner, push that baby out, and try not to poke through your fabric. If you do happen to poke through your fabric, it's not like the end of the world, in my opinion, because I've done it 100 times, but obviously you don't want to do that. Okay, now we've got all 4 of our corners poked through, and you just want to kind of stretch it all out, make it nice and neat. And then of course I forgot some clips, so let me grab some quick clips. And then you're going to take your opening, which is right here. As you can see, it's kind of rough. You're going to tuck that in nicely. Put a couple little clips right there so that you know where your opening is, because I like to start sewing my top stitch where the opening is. That way I get that out of the way right away. Anyway, now you want to take your bowl cozy over to the machine and do a 1/8 of an inch top stitch all the way around. You're going to use that same motion where you sew from here to here, lift up your presser foot, turn it, and then keep going all the way around to get to the very end. At the final step of our bowl cozy, which is just the top stitch, which gives you a nice finish, but it also helps to close this opening. So we're just going to take the machine, or excuse me, take your clips off, and you're going to want to sew 1/8 of an inch because your seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch. So you want to sew 1/8 of an inch. And on this one, I tend to go just, oops, sometimes it gets a little stuck in there because you got that big little corner knob. But anyway, you just want to go 1/8 of an inch, get your enclosure, and sometimes I like to just kind of use my finger to make sure my fabric is tucked carefully, if that makes any sense. And you're going to go right to that center seam. Okay, and then lift it and turn it. So what I mean by tuck my seams a little bit, so you see how they kind of roll some. So I like to just use my fingers, make sure that everything is pulled properly, and just kind of manipulate that little piece right there. And now I'm going to go to the end. And do my turn. And see here, it's got the same kind of thing where it's just puffed out just a touch. So I'm just going to use my fingers to pull that back nice and smooth. And if you notice, this is a 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine. I'm sewing right here inside that, and that gives me a pretty much a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or excuse me, a 1/8 of an inch top stitch there. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm having to pull this just a little bit because we got a little bit of a hump right there, and it got a little caught up in it. There we go. And then same thing, I'm just going to roll this, make sure it's nice and flat, move it just a bit, and I think I might have to pull it some. There we go. I don't often pull from the back because that can make your stitches go a little bit wonky, but when we're dealing with these really thick seams, sometimes I have to help my needle just a little bit, or my presser foot, whatever you call it, or whatever it is that gets hooked up, if it's the needle or the presser foot, I don't really know. But we're just going to continue all the way around, stopping at that seam, roll in your fingers just a little bit. Turn that, and I did feel some resistance, so I've got it back here in the back. I also push forward with these two fingers here. So I have a very gentle pull back here and a very gentle push right here, and that's just to get over that hump where those dart seams are, because the dart seams add obviously quite a bit of bulk. Now that I'm through that, I'm just going to take my fingers back away because I do not want to pull my fabric more than I need to. Do the same thing. Now, when you're doing this, you can go back, you can use clips. So like before you start sewing, you can always clip these two seams together, or you can clip this to where, you know, you don't have to manipulate with your fingers every single time you get to a corner or every time you turn a corner. But I don't like to do that. I just don't like to have all those clips in my way. So I just do it by hand. And I'm very much at the end here. And there we are. I'm just going to trim out my threads. Oh, you know what? One thing I just realized I did not do is I have white thread in my bobbin, which with this particular project, it worked out just fine, but I probably should have thought about that, and I probably should have mentioned that when you're dealing with the top stitch part, you will see that thread, and if you can tell, which again, you really can't tell all that much, my interior lines, my diagonals, and the half lines are in the yellow, and this is in the white, so your bobbin thread will show through, so just be careful to note that when you're sewing. But anyway, there you have it. Thank you for joining me today as we made this cute and easy, quick bowl cozy. I hope that you learned something new today, and I hope that you will join me for my future videos. My channel is very new, so I'm going to try to do new videos once a week at least. It's Christmas time right now, and I am making all kinds of projects for my grandsons for Christmas, so I'm going to try to film myself making them to give you some ideas of what I do for Christmas gifts for little boys, for little kids. Also, these bowl cozies I make for my husband's coworkers. I think they make a great gift. My mom also made some for her friends at her senior living. So I hope you like and subscribe to my channel, and I hope that if there is something that you want to see me make, that you leave me a comment down below. Thanks. Have a great day.